Hi, everyone. Welcome to Real Siblings. It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast that is altogether unconventional, unique, unusual, and seriously, it just ain't typical. Why? We'll cover that in another episode. I'm Eric. She's Donna, and we are those real siblings. We're both professional real estate agents. Was that a bad teaser for a future episode?
What are you doing in this intro, brother? Okay, go for it.
We both work with Keller Williams. Donna's in Tucson with Keller Williams Southern Arizona. I'm in San Antonio with Keller Williams Heritage. And right now, we're getting ready to start our next episode, and it's up to you to decide what we're talking about.
Up to me? Up to
Yeah,
them?
up to you, up to me.
Up
Right.
to me. Okay, are you throwing this to me now, brother? Am I supposed to pick it up for me?
Sure, why not?
Okay. So for those of you that watch the podcast, which I say in air quotes since podcasts aren't supposed to be videos, but we record this right on Zoom. So Eric and I always have a picture behind us and are talking about it. And today, if you're watching, you're probably thinking, what do they have in common? Except that they are the inside of a house. So mine looks very different than the one that Eric is moving around in front of right now, sliding from side to side. Eric, tell everybody what's behind you and what we're going to talk about today.
I have a big open concept empty house. And open concept is the topic for the day, and high ceilings, whatever the heck that means.
Right.
So I specifically looked for a photo that showed how empty an open concept room, living, dining, kitchen-y area can be as it flows together. And then you have to kind of set your furniture to create those zones within it.
Yeah.
And mine also has a little bit of a pitched ceiling, but let's talk open space. Yours, on the other hand.
Yeah, mine on the other hand was actually a patio room at one time. And if you look at it, you can see how thick the beam is in the middle, which was the exterior at one point. But very common in Tucson are these high ceilings that had the beams exposed. So this is a very typical mid-century that's been added on to, where they kept the look and the feel. And it's a massive room. You can only see part of it, but it's a huge room with a vaulted ceiling, I guess. And you and I already talked. We have highs in Tucson in the MLS. We have above 9 feet. It's a high ceiling. We have vaulted ceiling and we have cathedral ceiling. And I have to tell you, every time I input a listing, so it's peaked, it's tall, it's more than 9 feet. Anyway,
It is. So what makes it a cathedral? Do you ever list anything as being a cathedral ceiling?
Yes, and those tend to be ones that are maybe like a whole 2 stories that are exposed over the living or dining area, and then it'll be shorter in the kitchen, or something like that.
Okay, I have to ask then, are those that are cathedral ceiling, are those really, really newer builds? Because the only cathedral ceilings that I can think of, if that's what we're on, are new builds in high-end luxury communities that are raising the roof so the walls are at least 12 to 14 feet, and then you've got a big pitch up on top of that to create that cathedral.
Oh yeah, some of them are 20 feet, and like I would never change a chandelier, or 24 feet. They go all the way up to the top of what would be the second story in part of the house. That is not the case here. And Aaron, you and I didn't talk about this, but we come from a tall family. So with the average height in our family being 6 feet tall, not that any of my brothers married women that height, but just saying, for us, if I walk into a 1950s, a mid-century, or a flat roofed one that hasn't been raised, it can feel cramped to me just because of being taller, So do you notice that?
Yes. No question about it. When I don't know what a high ceiling is, because in our multiple listing service, or MLS, it's open concept and high ceilings. There's no differentiation to say that's more than 9 feet.
Okay.
That's anything along those lines. So it's kind of, you walk in going, is it or is it not? And I guess my measurement device would be typically with whatever your height are. If you raise your arm up over your head, you're adding about 2 feet.
Right. That's for me about 8 then, right?
So, right, we're both getting close to 8 feet. If you put your arm up
Yeah.
and you're banging into a ceiling fan or coming close to the ceiling,
Yeah.
that's not a high ceiling.
Yeah.
But is a foot higher?
That's where we hit the 9 feet. So let me ask you, because looking at the one that you're sitting in and thinking about where you live, you have your peak down the middle, right? The same as
Yes.
this. How high are the ceilings in your place, do you think?
About 12 feet at the maximum pitch.
Okay.
So right, like in the picture above my head, if that was 12 feet.
Yeah. So scoot back over to your left a little bit and cover up that doorway there. Okay. So looking at this picture, you guys, as we talk about open concept, Eric and I had discussions about, well, was this house open concept? Was that? So in this image, you see the kitchen down at the end, the sink must have a window to the left, and then French doors, looks like, to the outside. That light that's dangling behind you probably is intended to be over a dining table.
Yes, I would think so. That's going to be, yes, the dining zone.
And so then towards us, like in the image,
is where the couch is going to be, and a TV kind of along that, mounted on that wall. And
right.
There's no built-ins or anything like that. It just
somebody might add an island down there, a movable one or something. But the way this image is, it looks like I could go bowling in there. You know, I don't know how long it is or how long the house is, but it's big and it's long and it's open.
It's big, it's long, it's open, and I'm not entirely a big fan.
Me neither.
Of big open space. When I go out with buyers who are saying, especially if we're looking at new builds, which a lot of your new builds are just like what I've got pictured behind me, vacant. It is builder neutral, builder basic.
Yeah.
And you've got some sort of white cabinets, you've got some sort of off shade white walls, you've got, I mean, you don't even use the gray neutral that flippers are using. It's still some sort of cream white or something along those lines. And just like in some of your HGTV shows, the house shoppers, they give it a nickname.
Yeah.
I have a checklist with buyers, and it's like, look, if we're going out and that's what we're doing, we can't look at any more than 4, because I guarantee you're not going to remember the difference between house 1 and house number 4, because they're going to be so similar. Almost all of the builders in that category are putting in some sort of very basic granite, what I refer to as kind of like a salt and pepper granite.
Yep.
It's going to have white cabinets, and it's going to have some sort of an island, whether that's positioned a little bit off to the side or, as the one pictured behind me, just kind of flows straight into it.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to have. And by the time you go into the 4th one, it's like, okay, so it kind of had that neutral gray floor and it had the white cabinets. And how do you differentiate? Yours, at least the one you have pictured behind you, because it's that conversion and upgrade, has, while it's open, it stylistically doesn't say, oh, this is just like every other house that they build.
Right. And this is a higher end home, over $1 million here in town. So this is a piece of what is a higher end kind of old school Tucson home, you know, as compared to something that's brand new.
Okay. And it was that one of your listings or something, a buyer you had?
It's a listing and it's on the market right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
How big is that converted porch that opened it up?
Oh man. There's another whole side to that on the other side of the piano. So I would say probably 24 by 20 or something, maybe even bigger. We're actually getting a floor plan done on Wednesday.
Okay. And as you're sitting there in the room with the living space behind you and the grand piano behind you, you're looking into the kitchen?
You're actually, this particular addition, there's 2 steps up. into what would be then the living and kitchen. So this is the family area. And opposite the windows that you can see here on the other side are windows that open to the outside all the way across the back.
Yeah, I'm that guy though, I can tell you, because of growing up in the older houses, and I think you know, if anybody who's listened to this before knows I kind of have a passion for the older houses, not only the old houses that we grew up in, but the fact that style wise, they
Yeah.
just was something. And to go in some of these folk Victorians or something along those lines that now has been converted to a modern day open concept. You know, they opened up and got rid of at least two walls to create this big open pattern. It's a crime against architecture as far as I'm concerned. Because then it's going to be some sort of beigey, not beigey, a cool gray, something along those lines, and just anything that was had character distinction. And when I can go back and I can find the previous listing on those, so if I see something and I go, oh, I wonder what that looked like, and then you find out that they had some really, really cool built-ins,
Yeah.
differentiating the area, and maybe a little bit of a angled column or something like that, and all of that is gone. It's like, what the heck were you thinking?
What were the words that you just used related to the Victorian? Because whatever you said reminded me of the fact that you had so much German influence.
Folk Victorian.
Folk Victorian. I don't know if I've ever used that here because that's not a style we have here. But remember up at the ranch in Wickenburg, they had that folk / Mexico / Southwest.
Yeah, and you had something. What a territorial.
Yeah, yeah, a territorial style,
which would be, I think, similar from what we were talking in some of the design concept, probably
on the windowsills and some things like that.
Yes.
Maybe, yeah, yeah. But I can picture the color in the ones that you guys have in the areas where there's more of the German influence there, and so they're Texas homes, but with that, you know, and that older home, but with that little bit of.
Okay, and this is one of those things that it's while it's convenient if you're entertaining an open concept home, you're going to have people in.
Yeah.
Think a holiday meal, think some sort of party, birthday gathering, something like that. Seems really convenient.
Yeah.
Then there's the flip side of it. If one of the two partners in the house like a certain type of television event that the other one doesn't appreciate, where do you go? All right, now you go sit in your bedroom. And I'm sorry, many, many bedrooms, especially in a newer house, have room for the bed, have room for the dresser, have a huge walk-in closet, will have some sort of ensuite. Primary bedroom is what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
But does it have room to have an extra chair to sit in and read, or you're going to have to flop on the bed?
Yeah.
Which was fine when you're young.
Right.
But is it something you want to do to try to wedge a slouchy pillow and twist your back and all those other things as we become more seasoned in age?
Is that like a fine wine or one where the lid was left off? What
Yeah, no, that's a fine wine. Fine.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Now, you did say we did, but as we were preparing for this, we were talking about our houses in Lindsay, the two houses, one on Main Street, which we found was built at least in 1924, if not a little bit.
That's what you say. I don't believe that, but that's,
I know. But look, the county can't lie to us, right?
Right. No. Yeah.
No. And the other one built in 1868.
Yep.
And I don't feel like either one of those had a typical room setup that you might think of houses in those age.
That's true.
Because of how big our living room was, and on Main Street, it was in the front door. You had one big room that went to the left and to the right.
All the way across the house.
Went to the right, it went through that archway into the dining room and out into the kitchen. But we agreed, discussed, is that really an open concept? And from your standpoint, the answer is no, because why?
Because the kitchen was not part of it. And to me, the open concept is used specifically, and I don't know if it's true or not, this is just my interpretation, where the kitchen, where the dining, where the living come together. And in that home, even though that living room was really big, and you and I discussed whether it was ever 2 rooms, I could do 3 or 4 cartwheels across the front of the house. And even though that was the case, and then there was a big arch into the dining, but smaller into the kitchen, and the kitchen was very separate back there. So to me, that's not an open concept, because if mom was in the kitchen cooking and we ate in that little nook in the kitchen.
Yep, in the little nook on Main Street.
Yeah, the dining room was only used at the holidays, and I can barely remember furniture on both sides of the big front room, but to me, that's not open concept. And you and I then talked about your house and my house right now. So
right. And I feel like my house, one of the things that originally attracted me to my house when we went to the model was the fact that I have across one side, which I consider to be the back of my house, 2 sets of doors.
Yeah.
They were both originally sliding doors. One is now French doors. The other one is still the slider. Both of those open onto our patio, which connects by a bridge.
Right.
However, if I stood at that door that was in the kitchen behind the dining room table, I could see the front door, and I could see all the way through to the second living space in the fireplace in one big room. So from my standpoint, that was open concept. I'm standing in the kitchen. I could talk to people. They could hang around the island. They sit at the dining table. They could be in the living room.
Yeah.
But you're saying because the way it, from your standpoint, it was not. It didn't flow.
And you know what's really funny about that? So I'm thinking of where your pantry is and where you keep the dog food and stuff like that. And then the way that your peninsula comes out from the kitchen, the pass-through area there is not really very wide, right? I mean, if it's me.
No. There is a junction that it's like, this is where when you're traversing the house, everybody goes through this one
right
6-foot section.
So whereas like right in the one that you're in front of, the furniture is going to create that. There's no walls creating any of that. It's all going to be done by how you place your furniture and the way that you want your traffic flow to be. So in your place, now in mine, it's funny because I think it's an open concept, but I don't, unless I jump the countertop, I have to walk around and go in.
Right, unless
which doesn't.
Sorry, I know we just lost a person of distinction in the United States. O.J. Simpson back in the 70s would have leapt over that when he was doing a Hertz commercial. And you're not doing that now.
No, I'm not. There's no leaping taking place.
No leaping. There's gently walking around the peninsula. And because of how high your ceilings are, how high are your ceilings in the townhome?
Well, after I put in the antique that I brought back from Lindsay, so what's regular countertop size is what, 336 or something like that?
Yes.
And then that piece up above is 8 to 9 feet. So 12 to 13 feet tall. And
okay. And in order to support that, there's a post that you have to walk around on the end of your peninsula.
Right.
In order to go.
Right.
But yours is open concept and mine's
but
not.
It feels
you're a snob.
open, but not everybody can see my dirty dishes. I'm literally looking right now, you guys. Like, can you see my dirty dishes? No, you can't, because that's not even my kitchen behind me. But I like that I can use this butcher block peninsula, and I've had a lot of parties here, and I do, a buffet on there, and people can be on either side of it. Some people will come into the kitchen easily if there's something on the stove. But then it's dining, living, that's it, and what we don't have is what the home behind me in this picture has, is 2 separate spaces to go. So think about the one on Lynn Street, how if we were together with people, there could be the dining table, the bay window living room area, the library/TV room. We could really divide up and have separate conversations because of that. And that would never happen in that house that you're sitting, that's in the picture behind you now. So.
Right. And then we talk about the 1868 house on Lynn Street.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about just now. It
was not really structured like a house you would think at that age. I watch a lot of restoration shows.
Okay.
Where there are walls that they tear down, and even the interior walls are brick. You go back and listen to our bricks and limestone episode. We talk about the fact that our brick house was a true brick house.
Right.
It was open air space in it between interior brick and exterior brick.
Yep.
But there were no walls when Dad did all the renovation in 1972 before we moved in, that he had to tear out
No.
brick walls.
Nope.
And you had you had a living area off of Lynn Street. You had through the wood columns that went into a second living space.
Mm-hmm.
Then around the corner to a den, or what would have may have been the receiving room if they came in off of Maple Street.
Yeah.
There was a big open archway area that went into the dining room area. None of it was really, but because of the age that it was built, the kitchen was an afterthought. I think the kitchen came later in time.
Probably did. Yeah.
With those two doors that were, I mean, the archway into the dining room, the archway into the living room where the wood stove was at,
Yeah.
that was some sort of back porch area, I think, at some point.
We should go to our Retro Lindsay Facebook page and see if there's any Millers, children, grandchildren, great grandchildren.
Well, Daryl Nip was a Miller. He check with Daryl, and Daryl may know somebody who's.
Oh, because somebody in his family. Daryl was never a Miller, but the family was. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, somebody in town was. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to know what that home looked like before that big kitchen and bathroom were there, right? Yeah. Huh.
Okay, and now Walnut Street. Walnut Street, your house on Walnut Street is the one that feels to me the most typical for a house of its age.
Yes. Yeah.
Separate little kitchen space through a doorway out to a living room, through another doorway up to the stairs.
Yep.
Everything was very compartmentalized.
Yep. And our dining room was kind of far from the kitchen. If you think about the fact that you had to walk
Yes, it was.
to get there. Yeah. Yeah.
And what about Fremont? Miller Street.
What street?
Wasn't it Miller? What was it? What was the
Yeah.
street you were on?
Yeah, Miller Street, the one where we couldn't remember that Stom High School was right there. That Stom School was there. That one had like the mud room, and we had a basement downstairs, and you walked into the kitchen and then into the living room. Boy, this is really racking my brain to think about this. That was a reasonably good sized room. I can picture the carpet. I can picture the stairway up. I don't know where we ate.
but you had that as a finished basement. And we're going to have to do a basement episode, because as I've thought about our cousin's place in Bristolville.
Oh man, I was always so jealous.
That was the most amazing basement. That was a basement that was designed to be full on living space. I think even more so than what like Uncle Bob and Aunt Dude's place was in Deerfield, which was down a set of stairs, but it felt more livable because of the turns and the twists and the setup of it than.
They had the separate entrance from the outside. You know what? We should get Doug on here as a guest. He would, and have him talk about that house, because he's lived now in that town his whole life. And I wonder how many homes there had that,
have that kind of, that you could walk out the back end of it too, and under the back deck and out to the swinging.
Oh, they had a full downstairs
in the backyard, and I know there was kitchen and everything. Kitchen, bathroom, fireplace, ping pong table, pool table.
No wonder they felt so wealthy compared to us.
No kidding. It's like we had that cramped little basement that had a cistern in it next to Dad's work desk, which was flooded multiple times. And so.
Too funny. And then.
Do you have any builders at this point? Because I think it's primarily new builds that I'm thinking of that are not building open concept.
Not really. I think they are predominantly that way. We have people doing the next gen where there's like a divide and you can walk into through a sliding door to another area. But
for the most part, you walk in the front door and you were in a living open
kitchen, dining. Yeah.
Great room that, depending on how you're going to stage it, is your living space, your dining space, your kitchen space, all in one. And then somehow off of that, left or right. So what about your first house in Tucson? You walked in and you went into your bright red dining living space.
Yeah, yeah.
But you had to go around a wall to get to the kitchen, right?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to cough. You talk.
Okay. I'm going to talk now because my sister is going to look great on video. I just got to tell you. So, question to our listeners. I'd love to get your input, feedback. Do you live in an open concept, and why do you consider it to be open concept? Because the kitchen, dining, living area all flow together? Because if you're in the kitchen, you can see those areas? Or did there's something else, another characteristic that makes it open concept from your standpoint? Because as you can hear from our discussion, we don't think it's cut and dry.
No.
But how many of our buyers come up to us and go, well, it needs to be open concept?
Yeah.
Huh?
You know what? And we didn't talk about the last house on Main Street where I lived.
Right.
You and I talked about that beforehand, but that came through the garage, across the screened-in porch into the living room with what was, as I sit where I am right now in my house, I think that my dining living combination here was the size of the living room in that house. It was big. And remember, we had all those big picture windows across the front. If Gil was here, he could probably tell us how big it was based on how many Christmas lights we put out front,
You're right.
The
You
strands
probably could.
And then we walked into the dining room, and then we walked into the kitchen. And you and I discussed, I, again, don't consider it open. It wasn't totally closed off to the dining room, but there was the divide because it was a 1957 when you came in the front door. So there was a little bit of a pause there.
Right.
And the kitchen was separate. So, to me, I guess that's what I'm saying. Open concept to me always assumes in some way that the kitchen is connected.
Okay, so let me go one further then. Because of the way houses are designed now, and think a 40 or a 50-foot front.
Yeah.
A good portion of that 20-foot is going to be the garage attached, right? So in the open concepts that are being built there, do you have the garage door going into like a separate mud room at the back, which is mudroom utility room, and then into the rest of the house? Or does it come into that living space?
They tend to come into either a tiny little space, 3 or 4 feet, maybe with a place where you can plug in a phone now or something like that, the new ones, or right into the hallway. And the hallway might be by the laundry room, or by a powder room or something like that, so that it's not like they walk right into the kitchen. You're always going through some other little space,
Yeah. Well, and I guess what I'm thinking is that if you're in a 2-car garage and you're in the car that is furthest away from that door.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, many 2-car garages are really not made for people to walk in between those cars.
No, you're right.
But if you had to make your way around the front of the 2 cars and come back down the wall in order to get to that door, because there was a period where we had houses that's what you walked in the front door, and immediately within 2 or 3 feet is the door that goes into the garage. And so you kind of walked into that, instead of a separate entry area, you opened in and walked into that front entry area of the house so that all the shoes and coats and everything could be there.
Yeah.
And then you moved into the rest of the house. But how awkward is that in the garage?
Yeah. Yeah. And some of those then have the washer dryer,
Right. 1970s build still had the washer and dryer. They were inside, but you didn't get a utility room, right?
Which is interesting, because Gil's mom always appreciated that, because they had so many allergies, which is, I think, what's bugging me today. They had so many allergies that she liked that the dust and the stuff from the dryer was in a whole separate, it wasn't in the living space of the house. And even when she had a laundry room, she had put one of those little protectors across the door so that no dust from the dryer was blowing into the house.
So no dust blowing into the house, but that would be similar to what we used in the winter to help keep the cold air out.
Correct.
From coming.
Same concept.
She used it as dust.
Yep, to make sure that none of the extra.
Was it just a cute little roll, or did it look like some sort of squished animal now? The ones
No, I'm sure, Gil's mom was so eat off the floor clean that I'm sure whatever it was fine. And maybe it was a stuffed snake. I'll have to ask my nephew or my sister-in-law or something.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, so I've got this listing right now that's got a big converted garage. And so it's 400 square feet of converted garage. And I've had buyers go in there. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. And it's like, it's 400 square foot of additional living space that no other house in this neighborhood has. How can you not figure out what you're going to do with
Right, right.
it? But it was like, well, now this is too open.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's 20 by 20. That's daunting. I don't know what to put in there.
That's funny. That's true. That's true. Although, I sold a house with a great big open concept. Gosh, I don't know, 8 years ago. I don't remember how long ago. The daughter of one of my Up With People friends, and the grandkids there, Carrie's grandkids, dance and tumble and do all these things. That living room has hardly any furniture in it because they are always building things, jumping, rolling, or whatever. So like the one behind you, that would be perfect for that. So,
Okay, now I'm going to go back to something else you said, and I know it's starting to run out of time, but you said in the house that you have pictured there,
that
actually you have to go up a couple of steps.
that's because it was a step down into a patio originally.
Okay, so the space behind you
Yeah, behind.
was entirely a patio?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I thought just the
No,
windows and where you've got the pitch to it.
No.
That whole thing was a
it was
big
a
enclosed.
whole addition, and back where you can't see, there's literally the equivalent of probably room for anywhere from 4 to 6 cars. It would be tandem because it's only a 2 entrance.
Right.
But the guy's got a plane in there that he's working on and a wood shop and
So since I've been out in some of the houses you've had out there, that you've listed and been in before, if they have a slab, not that they're converted, but intentionally built to the hillside,
yeah,
to where you've got that couple of steps up and couple of steps down.
yeah.
Open concept. If you have to change elevations like that, do you consider that an open concept?
I don't know. Still got to go up and through a door to get to the kitchen. It's all about the kitchen for me, Eric. I don't know.
And if you show up, you're gonna have cookies.
That's right.
Or grilled romaine lettuce, which she did for us one time. I don't know what that was about. You did a little olive oil, a little pepper, and we're grilling romaine.
That's right.
Oh,
yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah. Oh no. That's funny. Oh God.
All right, sister. Well, why don't you close?
Okay.
This unconventional, atypical, not like any other podcast down.
Okay, then. So as we close this, I want to thank everybody for joining us. And as we typically stroll down memory lane a little bit, and we see if our memories are the same. We reflect on the homes that we lived in Lindsay and how it affected our lives and careers. And then also today talked a little bit about how tall is tall? How high is the ceiling? What
and modern open concepts.
Modern open concepts. And what does that mean? And when I go back to the Midwest, I always think about that, right? When you walk into a farmhouse that's been around. So keep us in mind because our goal here is to communicate, educate, entertain, and connect with you. If you're in Arizona, specifically, I'm in the Tucson area, and my brother Eric is in Texas in the San Antonio area. We are realtors with Keller Williams. We're here to help you and help you find the place that would be the perfect home for you. So wherever you are, United States, across the world, we also have a great referral group from almost anywhere in the world. So remember, until next time, it may be simple, but it ain't always easy. I am Donna. And
I'm Eric.
And we are
Real Siblings. I threw you off.